Ante-Nicene Christian Library. Translations of the writings of the Fathers down to A.D. 325. Edited by Reverend Alexander Roberts, D.D., and James Donaldson, LL.D. This is Volume 2, Justin Martyr and Athenagoras. This is dated 1867, being read by Peter John Paresis. This was translated by Reverend Marcus Dodds, D-O-D-S-A-M, and Reverend George Reith, R-E-I-T-H, A-M, and Reverend Pratten, P-R-A-T-T-E-N. Notes by the editors to Volume 2. The whole of the certainly and probably genuine works of Justin Martyr, and the two extant treatises of Athenagoras are comprised in this volume of the Ante-Nicene Christian Library. Of these, the two apologetics of Justin and the address to the Greeks, the exhortation, and the martyrdom have been translated by the Reverend M. Dobbs, M.A., the dialogue with Trypho, that's T-R-Y-P-H-O, and the theses on the sole government of God by Reverend G. Reith, R-E-I-T-H, M-A-A, and the writing of Athenagoras by the Reverend B.P. Pratten, Bristol. The fragment of Justin of the Resurrection has been translated by Mr. Dobbs, and the other fragments of the same writer by Mr. Roberts. Writings of Justin Martyr. Introductory notice. Justin Martyr was born in Flavia Neapolis, a city of Samaria, a modern Neapolis, N-A-B-L-O-U-S. The date of his birth is uncertain, but may be fixed about A.D. 114. His father and grandfather were probably of Roman origin. Before his conversion to Christianity, he studied in the schools of the philosophers, studying after some knowledge which should satisfy the cravings of his soul. At last he became acquainted with Christianity, being at once impressed with the extraordinary fearlessness which the Christians displayed in the presence of death, and with the grandeur, stability, and truth of the teachings of the Old Testament. From this time he acted as an evangelist, taking every opportunity to proclaim the gospel as the only safe and certain philosophy, the only way to salvation. It is probable that he traveled much. We know that he was sometime in Ephesus, and he must have lived for a considerable period in Rome. Probably he settled in Rome as a Christian teacher. While he was there, the philosophers, especially the capital C-Y-N-I-C-S, plotted against him, and he sealed his testimony to the truth of martyrdom. The principal facts of Justin's life are gathered from his own writings. There is little clue to dates. It is agreed on all hands that he lived in the reign of Antonius Pius, and the testimony of Eusebius and most credible historians renders it nearly certain that he suffered martyrdom in the reign of Marcus Aurelius, A-U-R-E-L-I-U-S. The Chronicon, C-H-R-O-N-I-C-O-N, Pascal, P-A-S-C-H-A-L-E, gives us the date 165 A.D. The writings of Justin Martyr are among the most important that have come down to us from the 2nd century. He was not the first that wrote an apology in behalf of the Christians, but his apologies are the earliest extant. They are characterized by intense Christian fervor, and they give us an insight into the relations existing between the heathens and Christians in those days. His other principal writings, the dialogue with Trypho, is the first elaborate exposition of the reasons for regarding Christ as the Messiah of the Old Testament, and the first systematic attempt to exhibit the false position of the Jews in regard to Christianity. Many of Justin's writings have perished. Those works which have come to us bearing his name have been divided into three classes. The first class embraces those which are unquestionably genuine, viz. The two apologies and the dialogue with Tryphus. Some critics have urged objections against Justin's authorship of the dialogue, but the objections are regarded now as possessing no weight. The second class consists of those works which are regarded by some critics as Justin's and by others as not his. They are, number 1, an address to the Greeks. Number 2, a hortatory address to the Greeks. Number 3, on the sole government of God. Number 4, the epistle to Diognetus. Number 5, fragments from a work on the resurrection. Number 6, and other fragments. Whatever difficulty there may be in settling the authorship of these treatises, there is but one opinion as to their earliness. The latest of them, in all probability, was not written later than the 3rd century. The third class consists of those that are unquestionably not the works of Justin. They are, number 1, the exposition of the true faith. Number 2, replies of the Orthodox. Number 3, Christian questions to Gentiles. Number 4, Gentile questions to Christians. Number 5, epistles to Zanus and Serenus, that's Serenus. And number 6, a refutation of certain doctrines of Aristotle. There is no clue to the date of the last two. There can be no doubt that the others were written after the Council of Nicene, though immediately after the Reformation, Calvin and others appealed to the first as a genuine writing of Justin's. There is a curious question connected with the apologies of Justin, which have come down to us. Eusebius mentions 2 apologies, one written in the reign of Antonius Pius and the other in the reign of Marcus Aurelius. Critics have disputed whether we have these 2 apologies in those now extant. Some have maintained that what is now called the second apology was the prefix of the first and that the second is lost. Others have tried to show that the so-called second apology is the continuation of the first and that the second is lost. Others have supposed that the 2 apologies which we have are Justin's 2 apologies, but that Eusebius was wrong in affirming that the second was addressed to Marcus Aurelius. The other maintained that we have in our 2 apologies the 2 apologies mentioned by Eusebius, and that our first is his first, and our second his second. End of the introductory notice read by Peter John Paresis.